Conversations with Indie Authors.
Our next guest today, he had his book debut at #1 on Amazon Kindle. It's called A Flicker in the Water, and he is very passionate about the water. I watch him all the time on social media. And so, well, I'm going to let him tell his story. Welcome to the show, Bob Gonzalez.
Hi, Brittany. How are you?
I'm doing way well. How are you?
I'm good, and that was a tremendous introduction. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, the other thing I didn't announce was that the foreword in your book was written by Mariel Hemingway, the granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway, and she's also an actress.
Yeah. I I still can't believe that I have a book written with a foreword by a Hemingway. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah. I've been a fan of The Old Man and the Sea for a long time, so it was just a natural thing for me to ask her to do it, and she enjoyed the book, and she said it spoke to her with a great sense of appreciation, which meant a lot to me.
Hmm,
Um,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
she is an actress. Yeah, she's more into podcasting these days though than she is into acting. She's passionate about the issues she cares about. You know, she does a lot for mental health and that sort of thing. So
Hmm,
she's got a podcast called Out Comes the Sun, in case anybody's interested.
nice. Can you take us back to the beginning with your story and the ocean? You're not actually from a coastal town. Can you take us back? How did this passion for the ocean or for the sea come about? Because you are from inland.
Yeah, my dad grew up in Cuba and my mom grew up in Puerto Rico, so they grew up near the water. And when I was a kid, I used to like to fish even in lakes and things. I would always enjoy, like, catching bluegills and sunnies and that kind of thing. And my dad used to take me to fish in New Jersey, a couple times a year, and I always loved it, even from a young age. It's something I just really loved. And when I moved here to Florida in my 20s, I started doing it regularly. And after about 15 years of stories out there, I thought, there's a lot of things I've experienced out here people might enjoy and learn a little from, like I did while I was writing it. And I turned it into a book.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
do you do deep sea fishing?
Yeah.
Okay. And how does that different than, going out on a lake and fishing?
Well, on a lake, you don't have to monitor the weather nearly as much as you do in the ocean. The ocean, you need constant monitoring for storms and thunderstorms, hurricanes, that kind of thing. The ocean can turn dramatically and very quickly, so you always have to have weather radar and maps and different things like that, and compass. So you can find your way back when you don't see any land. But in, in the lakes, usually you don't get a lot of wave action like you do in the ocean either. So you could have a flatter type hull on a boat. Mm.
That makes sense. My dad actually, when we lived in Texas, he liked to go deep sea fishing with the guys. He said it was his favorite thing because the boat would just be smashing around, and he
Mhm.
was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's invigorating." He also he liked to work in the ER too, so he just liked that thrill-seeking attitude.
Texas has some great fishing in the Gulf of Mexico around Galveston
Mhm.
area. It's really good fishing over there and
So
deep
what?
water.
Oh, you really? Is that deeper than
Yeah.
Florida? Because you're in
In
Florida, right?
Florida. Yeah, I'm in the Panhandle. We get deep water here too. Believe it or not, the west coast of Florida, from like Naples up until where it bends, the water is not very deep on the coast there. But when you do the bend there in the Destin area where I am between Panama City and Pensacola, the water starts to get deep there. And it runs all the way down through Texas, down through the Mexican side of the Gulf of Mexico. It's very deep water, Cozumel, all that, and real deep on that side. Um,
Interesting.
yeah. So, and the fish like deep water. That's why I bring that up because, especially the roaming fish, the pelagic fish, the wahoos, marlin, swordfish, those type of fish, they move around all the time. Tunas, and they like really deep water. So,
Can you share with us a story, something about being out on the ocean that would probably just make us go, ah?
well, there's a few of them. The title of the book was inspired by a tuna that in Louisiana, which is deep water also, there's a lot of oil rigs, and the fish love to congregate about around these oil rigs because they give them protection, or they feel like structure. Fish like to feel safe, and it also gives them warmth. From the pipes that go in the water, it gives off warmth and heat that the fish like too, and just the sounds. I think they're attracted to the sounds the rigs make. So anyway, we were fishing there, and in the middle of the night, around 2 a.m., we got struck. And it's like zzz, zzz, this big line is just fish being taken out, and I think, what is this thing? So it was a tuna, and the reflection that it made in the water just made me think. I didn't think of it at the time, but years later, I thought, a flicker in the water. That would be a great title for the book. So that's where that title comes from.
That's awesome. So this isn't a culmination of real stories, but you also mixed it with a little bit of fiction as well, right?
Yeah, there's a little fiction. I talk about Poseidon, the Greek god of the ocean in Greek mythology, who there's some superstitions in the ocean about him. You're not supposed to cross him. You're supposed to stay on his good side. So that's I talk about that in a sea trial that we had to take when our boat was pulled off its mooring during a hurricane. You're not supposed to take bananas on a boat, so we made a deal with Poseidon. We wouldn't take bananas on a boat, but we would take care of the boat so he wouldn't, take it out on us.
So wait, how do you appease Poseidon? What do you do?
Well, you're supposed to follow the rules that supposedly he sets in the sea, but like there are rules, like you're not supposed to change the name of the boat for one thing. Um, you're not supposed to eat bananas on a boat. Little things like that that are all superstitious rules about the ocean that have existed for centuries.
So have you ever done some of those things and had a disastrous uh, experience?
Actually, I've done them both, but I never had a disastrous experience.
I'm like, what is with the bananas in the boat?
Yeah. Actually, that thing with the bananas, it's on my website too. If anybody wants to go to the website at flickerinthewater.com. The banana started in the olden days, when ships used to carry cargo around. They would have bananas in the ships, and the bananas would rot, you know, and it would bring a lot of disease and a lot of rodents and different things on the ship. So I think that's where that comes from. It's they just no more bananas on ships, and that's where we have it today. It still exists.
That makes sense. Like a parent,
Mm.
I don't care why you're fighting, just stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit. Give us a couple of highlights from the book.
Well, we talk about a red snapper that we caught by accident one year when we were fishing. We were only a few miles offshore, and when you bottom fish, you go to different spots where you think the fish might be. You usually put the location in your radar and your finder, and it takes you to the spot. So, but we found on our depth finder, we saw this spot that we didn't think existed, that we didn't know about. So we said, let's give it a try here. So we dropped our line down, and as soon as we dropped that line down, we got this bite, and it turned out to be a huge bite. And we think, what is this thing? So it came up and it hit the water. It looked like a beach ball, and it turned out to be the a 42-pound red snapper, which is the second largest red snapper ever caught in Florida.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's
That's
one.
pretty.
Another one was we were also bottom fishing one day, and we got another big strike from a fish, and we didn't know what it was either. And after a long battle with this fish, you saw this big thing come up, whoosh, belly up in the water. It turned out to be an amberjack, and it was an old amberjack because he had wrinkly skin and he had no pupil in one eye. So I gave him a nickname, Marble Eye, because it looked like a big blue marble he had in one eye.
So, what do you do in your off time when you're not on a boat or fishing, or is there any time that you're not on a boat or fishing?
Well, years ago, I used to fish all the time. I'm not fishing as much these days. I go out occasionally. I'm a small business owner. I make pretzels, and that's what I do with most of my time right now. And I fish occasionally, and I write books. I'm
Nice.
writing another book right now, actually, as we speak. It's about baseball and different sports and that kind of thing.
Oh, wait, so you played baseball in college. So is that what it
Yeah.
inspired it?
Yeah, I've been around sports all my life. I played baseball in college, and I grew up a Pittsburgh Pirates fan when I was in Pennsylvania. And when I moved to Florida, I became a Rays fan.
Nice. And so what are
Yeah.
you writing about baseball?
I'm writing about all the different major league franchises and their histories, and I'm doing it with a light humorous touch, though, and
Nice.
with facts sprinkled in. I think it'll be enjoyable to readers any age. I want to make it appeal to kids so they learn about the sport, and I also want to make it funny for adults, where they can read it and relate to baseball and
Well,
football. There's some football poems in there too that'll be in
oh,
there.
football
Yeah,
poems.
poems. Yeah, yeah. I've got a bunch of poems that I wrote about football, and I think readers will find them entertaining.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So both of your books, because The Flicker in the Water, that was mentioned, there was a dad that was reading the story to his child as well. And so you're making all your books accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I'd like at least the first two, for kids that kids can read it, and I want to put the reader in there to who's necessarily hasn't had these experiences. I want them to feel what it's like. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
In fact, the boat that we fished on was named the Twister, which was after the shop because it's called the Pretzel Twister.
So you can't change the name even if you buy it from someone else, you're not supposed to change the name of the boat.
You're not supposed to. That's an old superstition. We did. We bought that boat and then we changed it from the previous name to the Twister, and it was okay. Everything went well.
There was no mermaids that came up and turned your boat and and said,
No,
"You
no
can't do
mermaid.
this."
Yeah. Yeah. It did, and I thought it did. One year we had a hurricane blow through here, Hurricane Opal it was called, and it was a hurricane that took everyone by surprise. It grew up from a tropical storm into a hurricane overnight, and this hurricane blew the boat off the anchor, the mooring. It was when the water subsided, the boat was on the pavement, and
Oh.
people were like, I have a picture of it in the book. They're like staring at this thing. What is this thing doing in the middle of the road? So it had to get airlifted back into the water, and I talk about that experience in the book.
Had to get airlifted. That's funny.
Yeah,
I used to
yeah,
live in Port Townsend, a little they have the Wooden Boat Festival, and there's always these gigantic like crane things like that move the
yeah.
boats around. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah. It's cool because you can go through the boatyard and stuff and it looks cool. There's some really pretty
yeah.
wooden boats.
Yeah, they're pretty. And wooden boats have to they take them to the boatyards because they need to be scrubbed and cleaned probably about once a year. Because otherwise they grow barnacles on the bottom and it slows you down and it makes the boat heavy. And if they get heavy enough, eventually they could even sink.
Oh, interesting. So if you
Yeah,
don't keep up on that, and that's
yeah.
specific to wooden boats, like the other ones, is that fiberglass?
Fiberglass, right. Fiberglass, you still need to do it. They don't accumulate quite as quickly as they do on wooden boats. Wooden boats need more of that kind of an upkeep. And wooden boats, too, after a while, they will get waterlogged. So it's good to get them out of the water to dry off, too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So even if you're living in it, you still need to get it out of the water and live somewhere
Every
else for a
so
little
often,
while.
yeah, to let them dry up and to clean them up. You don't want all that barnacle growth on there, that's for sure.
Okay. That's interesting. Oh, aren't you Florida? Well, you're in Destin, so I'm trying to, but you could technically get over to the Bermuda Triangle. Have you gone there? Have you had any experiences there?
Well, I have fished in the Keys, Key West, Isla Morada, and the Bahamas, I think, which I think both of those are in the Bermuda Triangle.
Hmm.
Um, but nothing ever happened that to me that dangerous or that life threatening. So it was always safe out there. I've gone on cruise ships too. We went to on a cruise one time, and we docked, I think, in Cuba, in Cozumel. No, Cozumel's not in the Bermuda Triangle, but I think Cuba is. So we docked in Cuba overnight, and everything was fine also. So
Maybe it's just certain people.
yeah. Yeah.
I
I'll tell
don't
you what I
know.
did learn though about the Bermuda, not necessarily the Bermuda Triangle, but the way the Gulf Stream works
Hmm.
is that there's a loop current that enters the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean, continuously pushing warm water into the Gulf. and it runs about 6 miles an hour, which is one of the fastest moving currents in the world, and it's 150 miles wide. And what it does is it enters the Gulf, and sometimes it wraps all the way up the Gulf Coast around Florida, and it always wraps between Cuba and Key West. But sometimes it always goes up to the North Coast. Other times it barely enters the Gulf before making its turn, and uh, it connects with the Gulf Stream and goes up the East Coast, which I never knew that.
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting. And a lot of times, it can get treacherous when you have all these currents converging. So that may be where a lot of the tragedies in the Devil Triangles have occurred, was because of things like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with temperatures converging and weather
Yeah,
and things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You
Because
got all
there's
those
rogue
factors.
waves as well. Have you ever dealt with a rogue wave?
Yeah, I mean, not a super huge one. One time we left in the early morning, and we were, 30 or 40 miles offshore, and swells began to develop, and big ones, and it came out of nowhere. So we decided to turn around, and we got back safely. But boy, did we take a pounding coming back.
Well, at least you got back safely. Oh, so okay, there used to be an old thing. The ship's captain, if something happens to the ship, he's supposed to go down with the ship. Is that still a thing?
Oh yeah, that's part of the. I don't know if it's a written rule, but it's definitely an unwritten rule in the captaining, is the captain's supposed to always go down with the ship. It doesn't always happen that way, but it's supposed to.
Yeah, well, I was like, well, okay, so if he can safely get off and all the crew is safely off and the ship is, it's gone anyways, why does he
Yeah.
have to go down?
Well,
I'm like, I can see if he's the last one,
yeah.
like, okay, we're all like, I got all my people off and now I can go. But what?
Well, he can go. I mean, if everybody's off, he can go, but he's supposed to be the last one standing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it's acceptable if he's the last one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's just being a good leader,
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
is like,
I would say that too. And here's an interesting thing: the captain of the Titanic took a lot of criticism because he didn't go down with the ship; he was rescued. Mm.
Oh, there was a captain, in Africa, they have some, I think it was the southern tip, they have some pretty crazy weather there. The waves can just
Yeah.
like suddenly get out of control. Like it was calm and then just all of a sudden. And so that
Mm.
happened to this big ship, and the captain was like the first person off. He said he was a
Really?
passenger. And
Oh
yeah, it was
wow.
a big
Okay.
ordeal. Like everybody
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
no, you can't do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
That was years ago. That's been,
Mhm.
I don't even know how
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. South Africa, I know, can get pretty treacherous down there. Yeah. This in that Cape, when all the turns in the Cape, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just certain places all over
Yeah.
the planet that
Yeah.
are just kind of like that, right? Just like certain
Right.
that
Right.
you guys would know that, like, because like all these different systems converge here.
Never been to where they collide like that. I know that the different currents do collide even in the Gulf and the Atlantic, like we were saying with the different loop current in the Gulf Stream. They
Yeah,
they collide, creating upswells and things like that. Um, we're under the rougher areas, though. Is the North Atlantic is a rough body of water, and I think you're in Washington, right? I think
yeah,
Washington, yeah, up there is very rough too, in the Pacific. I think Alaska,
that
all
makes
that is
sense.
very rough.
It's
Yeah,
really cold. So I'm from California, so I'm used to going to the beach and white sand and like it's waves and it's pretty and you can get in the water. And here it's so cold year round. It's
yeah,
always freezing. I'm like,
yeah,
people, the beach towns here have clothes that say it's freaking cold
yeah,
because
yeah,
everybody's fully in gear. I've
yeah.
never seen anybody in a bathing suit, even in summertime.
That's interesting that you say that in California it's warm, because there's a cold water current called the Humboldt current. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, up there, up Northern California, yeah. It
Yeah,
gets colder.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Gulf Stream and the Loop Current are warm water currents.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm from Southern California, so I would be like Redondo Beach, and,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
and that's warmer, that's warm water. I grew up in Texas in, Galveston. Well, I lived at like an hour north of Houston, but that Galveston is where we used to go to.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn
I
Campbell
remember
made Galveston famous.
what?
Glenn Campbell made Galveston famous. Glenn
Did he
Campbell, the
really?
singer.
How
Galveston, oh
Oh my
Galveston.
gosh. That's funny. I wondered how I'm like, why do people know about this place? Because there's prettier beaches in Texas than
Yeah, yeah.
Galveston. I don't
Oh,
know.
it was a popular hit song. Glenn Campbell was the singer's name. Look him up.
That's awesome. You have a new book coming. When will your new book be coming out?
I'm working on it now. I want to have it out next year, maybe by mid-year next year. Yeah, maybe sooner, but we'll see. It takes a lot. Sometimes the production of this stuff takes a while. So, but I do want to have it out next year for sure.
Have you finished writing and you're just doing editing at this point, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm adding and taking away things, but the framework of the book is there.
I always think it's funny when editors are like, move this complete chapter to a
Yeah,
different place.
yeah.
But then they end
Sometimes,
up being right, but it's just it's like, what?
yeah, because sometimes you think of ways of rewording things, or you even add more ideas, and then it changes another idea you had over there. So you have to
Yes.
you have to change the whole thing to make it fit. Yeah,
Yeah, I think writers are a bunch of ADHD people. We're like, "Ooh, squirrel. Ooh, ooh."
yeah,
But
yeah,
wait,
yeah,
it can be better.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
tell everybody where they can find your books. When your new one is
Um,
coming out, you're going to announce it on your social media, I'm guessing?
oh yeah, for sure. It's still a few months away. I'm gonna wait a little while more, but next year sometime I'll have it out there.
Okay.
My book, the current one, A Flicker in the Water, could be found at my website, flickerinthewater.com. And I like people to go to the website because there's a lot of things on there that are not in the book. There's facts about the ocean, like we talked about the bananas and things like that, that are on there. Certain sayings that you toe the line, that all comes from the ocean. Things like that. But there's links there to Amazon and Barnes and Noble or anywhere books are sold. You can order a copy. And my Facebook page, Twitter. I'm in most places like that. But the one-stop shop is flickerinthewater.com, my website.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you sharing your fun knowledge, and I learned some things I didn't know.
Thank you, Brittany. I enjoyed it.
If you enjoyed this show today, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. It's you that keeps us going. The Zarlequan Indieverse.